Hey everyone, and welcome back to my reviews of the Santa Claus show on Disney Plus. Today we're going to be covering episode 6, aka the finale. So if you don't want any spoilers for the finale of the show, click off this video, but make sure you come back and listen to my review, but there will be spoilers ahead. For the final time this season, just like all my other reviews, I'm going to be covering the nice, which is the stuff I like in the show, the naughty, the stuff that I don't really like in the show, and then we're going to be doing our Bernard watch. And folks, there's not a lot of Bernard in this episode. I would almost say there's 0% of Bernard, but we got to keep the Bernard watch. Just like that's my thing. So let's start off with the nice. I really liked how this episode just jumped right into the action. It was very character driven. Every character had its moment throughout the episode, and it felt very intentional. At this point, we had already covered all of the lore that we needed to know for this specific season, so we were able to move forward very quickly. I thought the reveal of the amulet ending up being the mug was very cool. I'm all about taking little moments and little items from the original movies and connecting them to the show, especially if it's from the original Santa Claus movie. Anytime you can take something from the best thing in this franchise and connect it to this show, I'm all about it, especially Bernard. And lastly, I just want to give one more shout out to Magnus Antis. In my opinion, Magnus Antis is the best character this franchise has ever had, behind Bernard, obviously, and maybe Neil too, but at least in third place. As you know, I was majorly in the boat of don't redeem Magnus Antis. Let him be bad. Let him be Mad Santa. Let him be evil. But he's just so dang likable that I was okay with his redemption. I was fine with it, and I'll let it slide. Honestly, hats off to Eric Stonestreet. He commanded every single scene he was in as Magnus Antis, and he gave one of the best performances this franchise has ever seen. All right, now that I've addressed the nice, let's talk about the naughty. And I know you're thinking, wow, that was not a lot of nice that you talked about in this episode. Did you hate this episode? No, that's not the case. And the naughty section of this review is probably going to be the biggest. And it's not because I hated this episode or I think the show is terrible. It's more of ideas and pitches I have personally that I think could have made this episode better. And honestly, that just has to go into the naughty section of this review. That's just where it goes. So I did not hate this episode. In the naughty section, if you're looking at your timeline and the timestamps, it's probably going to be the biggest. I didn't hate this episode. I just have some ideas that could have made this episode better. So let's talk about those. Overall, I wish the stakes of this episode felt bigger. It felt like every major storyline we had in this episode took the easy way out and was super anticlimactic. The storyline about the banding together of the elves and the gnomes almost happened completely off screen, minus the speech we end up seeing Noel do later on. And even when we did see this speech, it made the whole situation seem super simple. There are nearly 700 years of bad blood between the elves and the gnomes. Is there any way we could have made it feel a little bit bigger that they're finally burying the hatchet? A very small change that could have been added to this scene is a gnome just speaking up and asking why they should be helping the elves. The gnome should have the complete upper hand in this situation, and I think them questioning or even saying no to the elves could illustrate how fractured this relationship is. I'm just spitballing here, but what if instead of Noel going to the gnomes, Betty goes instead, and she tries to be super diplomatic and super head elf-esque, and it just rubs the gnomes the wrong way. This creates a really interesting dynamic because from the gnomes' perspective, the only way the elves come and interact with them is if they're desperate and need them. This whole situation and interaction then can lead to our confrontation between Betty and Olga, instead of it just happening out of nowhere. And then as this confrontation between Betty and Olga is happening, Noel goes to the gnomes because he's worried and he's looking for Betty, and he ends up being the one that convinces the gnomes to help them out. But it's not because of some crazy speech or because he commands the room. It's because Noel is kind and he talks to the gnomes as equals, which is all they want. This also keeps Noel's character from drastically changing into this ultra serious, this is how head elves act, into the super weird serious character, but rather shows that Noel just being himself was head elf material enough. As for the storyline between Magnus Antis and Santa, I felt the same way. Their interaction just felt very anticlimactic, and it didn't feel like the stakes were quite high enough. One small change that I think could have made the stakes just feel a little higher is if Magnus Antis took the cow Nutcracker with him back to the North Pole. This accomplishes two things. The first of which is it gives a major reason why Chris needs to go to the North Pole with Santa and Carol, because he was there when Cal turned into a nutcracker. So they actually need his help. Instead of it just being like, hey, do you mind if I just tag along? I really love Santa. Can I just tag along? Gives a reason why he's going with them. And second, it makes the urgency to find Magnus Antis and get Cal back so much more serious and dire. In Santa and Carol's mind, they left the North Pole on a rescue mission to find Cal, and they were too late. And now they have unintentionally given Magnus Antis a clear opening to take back over the North Pole. They have to rush back, and they need Chris's help because they have no idea what Magnus Antis is capable of. This also allows us to completely eliminate the whole scene with Santa, Carol, La Befana, Sandra, and Chris. I think it's super cool to have Sandra be the one that ends up saving Cal, but this whole scene telegraphs it. We don't need to be told any more times that Sandra's powerful. We know that Sandra's powerful. You don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell us again. So then instead of being told that Sandra's the only one that can turn Cal back, have her show up when Santa is at his weakest. And then you give Sandra this big moment where she gets to show everyone how powerful she is. Instead of being told over and over again, Sandra's super powerful. She's super powerful. Show us that she's powerful. Give her that moment of saving Cal. And then make this the moment that Scott Calvin Santa realizes that he can trust his kids and that they're looking out for each other. And if someday down the road they want to take over the Santa Claus family business, he can look at moments like this and know that they got it. Those are the small changes that I think would have made this episode more climactic. As I said earlier, I don't think this episode is bad by any means. I think it's 100% fine. I just think there was room for improvement. And if you disagree with me and you think my ideas suck, hey, let me know in the comments. I'm totally fine with you saying my ideas suck, because maybe they do. All right, now that I addressed the naughty and the stuff that I didn't really like in this episode, let's go ahead and jump into the Bernard Watch. Our only Bernard mention in this episode is reference to him going to Cribble Crabble. But also in this line, we get the reference that Curtis also went to Cribble Crabble and did not explode. And this is just not true. Curtis exploded and he is dead. I'm sorry, that is what is canon now, and I don't care what the writers say. Curtis exploded and he's gone. Rip Curtis, and it was nice knowing you, I guess. Very quickly before I end this review, it seems like from everything I've read, the odds of this show getting a season 3 are actually pretty high. So if there are any showrunners for this show or writers watching this review right now, here are a few requests I have for season 3 of the show. Number 1, obviously bring back Bernard. It seems like Betty and Noel are riding into the sunset. So having Bernard come back and train the next head elf would be super fun. Number 2, bring back and introduce more legendary figures. More than you had in this finale, which technically was, I mean, 1 because of Santa, and okay, maybe 2 because Magnus Antis, because La Befana is not a legendary figure. Just bring back more legendary figures and keep expanding on the lore of this show. And number 3, make Bernard Santa. It's not that hard, and all of us want it. We all want it. I can speak for everyone that we want Bernard to be Santa. All right, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching this review and all of my past reviews. If you have not watched all of them, go give them a watch. I would love if you would check them all out. I just did a live stream of this past finale too. If you want to check that out with the live stream chat and all that kind of stuff, definitely check that out. But I really appreciate you watching all these reviews and keeping up with the show with me. If you could leave this video a like, I would really appreciate it. And throw a comment down below of what you thought of the show. If you have any theories going forward, just anything you have related to the show, throw it in the comments. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button so you know when my next video comes out, if it's Santa related or something else related. I have no idea what the next video will be. We'll just see, I guess. If you're not already part of the Discord, come on, come join the Discord. It's very fun. People are talking about Santa Claus, and it's just a super fun outlet for all of us Santa Claus fans to have a place so we can all talk about it. And also, I'll maybe talk about my future videos in the Discord as well. I have no idea. I don't really even know how to use Discord. I just thought it'd be fun to have it. So I'm sorry I'm not the greatest Discord guy in the world. If you want to keep up to date with things I'm creating and you're not already subscribed to this channel, you can always check out my podcast, The Good Brothers Show, wherever you get your podcast. It's super fun. It's me and my 3 older brothers. It's a very fun time. And sometimes we talk about Santa Claus. It's been quite a while since we've talked about it, but maybe in our next episode we will talk about it. But I'm gonna be honest, I am very Santa Claused out. And if they mention, hey, we should talk about Santa Claus, I will probably tell them there is so much Santa Claus content I've already made, and I'm done talking about it just for a little bit, just for probably a year until the next season comes out. I'm sorry, but that's just my feeling at this exact moment. It might change in an hour or so. I don't know. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that video is.